Hollywood actor late Chadwick Boseman, in his famous movie Black Panther, says, "In troubled times, wise men build bridges while fools build walls." Chadwick Boseman has left a legacy which will be remembered for a long time to come. Until his debut in movies, Hollywood was known for showing black people as villains, drug addicts, repeat offenders, etc. etc. However, Boseman was very instrumental in changing the stereotype thinking among Americans by playing characters that are cherished and admired even today. In the same manner, we are also called to construct bridges, not walls. In the world out there, when things get tough, people build walls to protect themselves. But as Christians, when things go against our plans, we are called to build bridges and overcome the situation, but not to confine ourselves with the walls around us. I am reminded of the famous quote by former American President Barack Obama. "When times get tough, we don't give up, we get up." Bible 2 Kings chapter 23 speaks about a timeline in the history of Israel which everyone must study about. In this passage, we learn about the life of King Josiah, who started to reign over Israel at the tender age of 8 and went on to rule Israel for 31 long years without drifting from God's commandments to the left or the right. He lived an exemplary life that God himself testified that there did not live a king more righteous like Josiah on the face of the earth. When Josiah took over the reign, Israel was facing the after effects of the evil rule by Josiah's predecessors like Manasseh and Ammon, where practices like child sacrifice, idolatry and sexual immorality were rampant in the gates of religion. Josiah had all the liberty in the world to continue in the path of his forefathers set before him, and no one would have questioned. However, what makes Josiah exemplary is the fact that he chooses to be different like a revolutionary and started swimming against the current. He decided to renovate the temple of God, which eventually found the way to finding the law of commandments, which was thought to be lost for a long time. His decision to walk with God meant that Israel was saved from God's wrath, which was proclaimed during the reign of Manasseh, Josiah's forefather. For the evil and pagan deeds Israel was subjected to during his rule, he wiped out all the pagan cults that had formed with his land. Josiah, along with his people, entered into a new covenant with the Lord, obeyed by the law, and his reign saw the greatest Passover in Israel's history. On the outside, there was a powerful revival in Israel, but people were not following God with their whole heart. However, because of the dedication of one man, King Josiah, God did not punish Israel during his lifetime. As Christians, we often speak about the end times and the second coming of Jesus Christ. Yes, you and I are safe. If rapture happens today, we have the assurance that we will meet Christ in the heavens. But what about your neighbor, friends, near and dear ones? We must understand, while we speak about the second coming of Christ, half of the world yet to hear about the first coming. There is a famous story of a Dutch boy, Hans Springer, who saved a country by putting his finger into a leaking dike. This boy was rejected by everyone, had all the reason to not to save his country. However, he thought otherwise. On a very cold night in Holland, Hans Springer was returning home. When he saw a dike leaking, he understood that there was no time to go to the village and inform people. he chose to stay there and put his finger in the leaking diet and stayed there the whole night freezing and eventually saved everyone. We live in a world where people think breaking up is better than reconciliation, be it in a family or society. We find destruction and violent behavior everywhere. As Christians, we are called to be change agent. As I started this sermon, let me repeat it again. We are called to build bridges, not walls. Our role model Jesus also built bridges, not walls. Though people stumble over Jesus and were divided in their opinions over him, the debate is often centered on his bridge building practice and claimed to be God's reconciling agent in the world. At Jesus' death, the veil in the temple was torn from top to bottom. You can see that Matthew 27 verse 51. He tore down the dividing wall of hostility between Jew and Gentile. Ephesians chapter 2 verse 14. There is no longer division between Jew and Gentile, male and female, slave or free. They are one through Jesus' atoning work. You and I are also expected to be like Chadwick Boseman, who his area was a change agent. Josiah in the Bible saved Israel from God's wrath, though judgment was proclaimed even before his birth. And Springer, though rejected by everyone, did not let his selfishness rule over him, but instead risked his life to save whole country. We also are called to be revolutionaries who change the world for the good. Let's change the world for good. God bless you.